there. Welcome to a new week and a new lesson. This week we're going to be talking about parts of speech, specifically the 8 critical parts of speech. Now, I know some of you are like, I don't even remember the parts of speech. That's okay. Some of you are wondering, what's the relevance? Although I think if you're here, you see that. And third, some people are probably already debating with me. I thought there were 9. Whatever the case, I'm really glad that you're here. Hey, my name is Melissa Webb, and I'm a credentialed teacher. I'm a former homeschooling parent and a mom of 3 amazing young men. And my passion is getting our home educators informed to teach excellent skills to their homeschooling children. And you can see, if you haven't already, my passion, my wheelhouse, has everything to do with writing. So this week I want to talk to you about the 8 parts of speech and answer the question that comes up. Is it necessary for us as home educators to have our children memorize something like parts of speech? So, right, everything is at our fingertips. We could just look it up. But I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I think, yes, we should be teaching our children to memorize at least the 8 parts of speech. Okay, so number 1, learning is learning. That's always a good thing, right? Have you ever at the end of the day said, oh my goodness, I definitely learned too much today? No. So that's valuable right there. Number 2, did you know memorization happens in a place in the brain that nothing else develops other than practicing memorization? So there's a whole neuroscience behind it. I won't go into that, but I will tell you it's valuable if your goal is to fully develop your child's brain, which I think it is. The third thing is, by memorizing these parts of speech, your child will go from writing more random sentences to having a more complex structure, more interesting pieces and components, more detail. It really takes writing up a notch when children know that there's a checklist or some kind of a cheat sheet that they could just take a look at, make sure that they add. And as well, if it's memorized, they're just going through their head and making sure that they have really terrific sentences. So what are the 8 parts of speech? Are you ready? Here we go. Nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions, articles, and the controversial 9th, interjections. Hooray! So I just don't see interjections coming in frequently, so it's not something that I would, make mandatory, but why not? It's not hard, and it's actually a fun set of words. I'm going to tell you more about this and show you how I use this with students. I really like to use actual sentences. Yes, there are workbooks, but often that feels like busy work. Let me show you how I do this with students to engage them and have them realize that each of these is going to help make a really terrific sentence. All right, let's do this. Let's talk about the parts of speech in more detail. And I'm going to show you why I think this is a really important thing to share with our children. Okay, so let's take a look at this sentence right here. The sly and hungry coyote crept slowly toward the innocent rabbit. Quietly it waited. Now, as I mentioned earlier, having some kind of a checklist, some kind of a cheat sheet for our children can really help them expand on their sentence structure. And this is one way I practice with my students. I create a sentence that I know has created all of the 8 parts of speech, and we will actually go through it, and I will say, okay, let's take a closer look at this sentence. Where are the nouns? So again, I know people like to use workbooks, but sometimes it just doesn't bring it home. It just feels like busy work, right? But when you do this together and you talk about this and you say, let's find them together and let's create it ourselves, it makes it more practical. So I will say this to my students, help me find the nouns. Remember, it's the person, the place, the thing, or the idea. We find our nouns. Then I go into, let's find those pronouns now. And you'll see as they find the pronoun, I keep it all colored and highlighted so it starts to really show itself in the sentence. So then we'll go on to articles, which you can see in green. So I say, let's put in green the articles that you see. There they are, and we move on. And as you see, everything is staying colored so that students can continue to see the relevance and the connection. So now we're going to talk about adjectives. Now this offers a great opportunity to say, what are adjectives? They're the words that describe our nouns. And look, what are our nouns? They're in red. So this is a great way to say, go find the noun, what's describing it. By doing this and leaving everything in color, again, you're going to start to see that these 8 parts of speech are important because they're allowing us to get very creative and expansive in our sentence structure. So then we're going to move on to verbs. We're going to do those in blue. Now remember that the verb is whatever the noun is doing. So again, you find your nouns, they're in red. What is the coyote doing? He is creeping, right? And the pronoun is also a noun, right? It's just the name that means what our original noun was. So it is referring to the coyote. So it is also doing something. It is waiting. What a great way to talk about this. Then we move on to adverbs. Again, a perfect time to have a mini lesson. I wouldn't necessarily do all of this at one time, especially if you have a younger child, 3rd grader, 4th grader, maybe even 5th. Break this down and just do it maybe a couple parts a day, or break it up into different times during the day. Okay, so when we talk about adverbs, we remind our students that adverbs are those words that are describing the verb. So again, isn't it great? We have our verbs colored. So we go look at both of our verbs and we say, how did that coyote creep? It crept slowly. How did it wait? It waited quietly. This really helps children understand the role of these different parts of speech. Again, a great time to talk about, look how in crept slowly up here, we have it following the verb. But here it comes before the verb. Again, also a great time to point out, look, both adverbs are ending in ly, also very common. Again, mini lessons just open themselves up. Next, we're going to talk about conjunctions, right? This is and, but, or. It can connect sentences, but it can also connect words, like it connected our 2 adjectives. Again, by having these all colored, you're using the vocabulary that children need to start to understand, become very familiar with doing. And that leaves us with prepositions, which is in black, and there's only one word left, toward, right? And it's explaining how the noun was moving or where it was, etc. So again, you can go into a deeper lesson there if you want to. Now, I also do this. I show students that you can create a sentence without paying a lot of attention to your parts of speech and still have complete sentences. The coyote was hungry. He saw a rabbit. Those are 2 sentences that are grammatically correct. They're detailed. They're telling me there was a hungry coyote and that he saw a rabbit. Okay, but look at the difference in color. I want you to look at this one. Oops, and let me go back here. I want you to look at this one. Look at the color difference, okay? Again, we have, 4 or 5 colors here. That's nice, but our goal is 8. We want at least 8 colors. And so when you use this with your children, if your child writes a sentence like this or 2 sentences like these, perfectly fine, but this would be the time that as you're a home educator, as the homeschooling mama, you say, hey, these are great sentences. Here's your 8 parts of speech, little cheat sheet, little checklist. Go make sure that you have every color somewhere in there. And when you do that, my friends, your children's sentence structure is going to move up to a next level. And isn't that what we're all shooting for? All right. I hope that helped. And there you have it. I hope that this is a timely tip and a bright idea that's going to encourage you. Don't forget, there is a freebie that's going to be of help. You can add that to your child's writing binder. You'll find that in the notes section below. And before you go, did you hit subscribe? Did you give me a thumbs up? That's really encouraging. It really does motivate me to keep on going. Be sure as well to comment in the box below. If you agree with this type of memorization skill, I'd love to know what other things you feel children should memorize. All right, until I see you next week, right on, my friends.